Welcome to Alabama AgCast, a weekly conversation about news and issues affecting Alabama farmers and forest landowners. Alabama AgCast is produced by the Alabama Farmers Federation.
Hello, this is Brian Harden, Director of External Affairs for the Alabama Farmers Federation, and we welcome you to this week's edition of Alabama AgCast, and a little bit of a unique topic that we are discussing this week. We welcome Les Bernal with Stop Predatory Gambling. Les, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, obviously, this issue of gambling has come up because of the discussion by members of the legislature to look at addressing this issue. So because of our policy position as an organization, Les, we are engaged to oppose any expansion or legalization of gambling due to our members' position on this. So we want to make sure that we are doing more education, more understanding of the issue, because it can be complicated and misconstrued, I think, many times. You were in the state yesterday through tomorrow and graciously spent some time with a group today in our office. So thank you for coming in to really maybe hit some of the highlights, Les, on what you talked about. So just to start, the name of your organization is Stop Predatory Gambling. So what is predatory gambling?
Yeah. So I think it's important to make a distinction when we're talking about what's being proposed in Alabama. It's not really, we're not debating gambling. You and I could do some gamble privately if we wanted to. We could have a friendly wager on the golf course. We could have a Friday night poker game. You could have a March Madness bracket, that type of activity, or a Super Bowl office pool. That's technically gambling. That's social gambling. What we're talking about here is predatory gambling. That's what's proposed for Alabama. And predatory gambling is when governments, like being proposed in Alabama, governments partner with powerful corporate gambling interests to use commercialized gambling. Commercialized, keyword, and which means being run as a business. And when you run gambling as a business, it creates an adversarial relationship between the gambling operator and the person doing the gambling. Right? They're trying to take you down. And in the end game, what it does, this is a business that exploits and defrauds citizens and their communities. So this isn't like what people do privately. This is a government program that will have an active, aggressive, relentless adversarial relationship to the people of the state, trying to turn the whole citizen all the citizens here into losing enormous sums of personal wealth.
So something you said this morning, Les, that I thought was interesting. You raised the question and then answered it through your presentation, and I think we'll obviously cover a lot of this as we talk now. But why is predatory gambling America's most neglected major problem?
Sure. So I'll touch on a couple key points. One is over the next 6 years in America, the American people are going to lose more than $1 trillion of personal wealth to commercialized gambling that's promoted by state governments. Okay, that equates to $150 billion of lost personal wealth every year, and just to put it kind of per minute basis, that equates to $285,000 every minute. So if we talk for 15 minutes today, citizens are going to lose, close to almost $30 million. So that's what we're talking about. And what gambling advertising and marketing today in our country, in Alabama, to its credit, it's far better off today than it would be if it had gone down the road of state lotteries and gambling commercialized gambling 25 years ago. But almost in every other state in our country today, the public voice of American government is gambling, advertising, and marketing. It's what we advertise to the American people more than anything else. When I was a kid growing up in the late 70s, we used to have John Wayne would come out on camera and he'd say, invest in your country, buy U.S. savings bonds. We used to encourage people to build wealth, construct, and that's how we built so much of America, right? The road construction, we funded school development, and so on. But what all this gambling, advertising, and marketing has done is it's taken a nation of small earners across the country and who could be small savers, and it's turned us into a nation of habitual bettors, habitual gamblers. So people are losing enormous sums of money. So everyone wonders why are we having a shrinking middle class? Why is it so hard to move up the ladder? Well, a big reason why is because on every street corner, if you're in a low-income community, your ticket out, the way to change your life isn't to save more money, work harder, get educated, wherever it may be. It's, hey, here's your fastest way to $1 million. Buy this $50 scratch-off ticket. Like, it's a con. And so you the citizen who never gambles, you pay for all this. So, the legalization of commercialized gambling in our country has failed. And so the good thing for Alabama is, like, we don't need to speculate what predatory gambling is going to look like here, because you can just look at what other states have done and how dramatically it's failed, and what the people said it was going to, the gambling lobbyists and the proponents of gambling had said it was going to do. None of those things have delivered. It's America's most neglected major problem.
So, Les, one of the things that I think has been more apparent for all of us the last several years, and I would love for you to dive into this a little bit, that we would not have been talking about maybe 15, 20 years ago, but it's sports betting. You can't watch a football game or a basketball game on a major sports network like ESPN without seeing sponsorship by, one of the betting apps, or encouraging you to do that, or open the ESPN app without being prompted to subscribe or bet on the very game that you're watching. Talk about the emergence of sports betting. Where is that going? Why is that dangerous to our society?
Yeah. So it's important to note here that you and I could already place a sports bet with each other here in Alabama. Okay, we could place a friendly wager on the Super Bowl that's coming up, or a March Madness bracket, and so on. That's already legal. What's illegal is you and I cannot run our own sports book, because it's a form, and the reason for that is financially. The longer you participate in commercialized gambling, you're going to end up losing all your money. It's a form of financial fraud, just like price gouging and false advertising. It's a big con, and so with sports gambling, commercialized sports gambling, what they're doing is they made the experience so, like, you're not just betting on the outcome of a sporting event. You're literally have you wagering on your phone or on your tablet, computer, like every 10 seconds on every possible aspect of a sporting event. So if you're watching a football game, they're trying to push you to wager on, is the next play in this game going to be a run or a pass? Will this player have 3 touchdowns in this game? Like, constant, almost an unlimited amount of wagers. So you have young people, especially young men, starting from ages of like 10 years old up to 35, that's the main target demographic here, who literally have become addicted relentlessly to these online sports gambling apps. It's just, and the marketing that occurs is, they're exempt pretty much from truth in advertising regulations under the Federal Trade Commission, because the states are a partner, and the state government, this business is only legal if they partner with the state. So in state after state that has legalized online sports gambling, you have teenagers walking in to Gamblers Anonymous meetings with their parents, because these kids have been rushed. So we have an epidemic of child and teen gambling in America today, and it's important to note there's no grassroots movement for any of this. This wasn't driven by citizen demand. It's being driven by very powerful financial interests. The gambling industry, powerful media interests, some state officials. The people that are profiting who are going to profit from all these financial losses of citizens. So I think it's really important to understand that this is like gambling fentanyl. No one would encourage their kids to use fentanyl, which we all know is an extremely dangerous drug. But this is the online gambling is the equivalent of gambling fentanyl.
As a parent of a son that's still a teenager and having 2 older children, I know a lot of people would relate to this. You think about a lot of the already dangerous and bad things that you can get on your cell phone, on your smartphone, and already dealing with that, what I would say is addiction in a lot of ways of spending too much time on social media or other things on a phone. But this is another thing that I think as parents we need to be aware of and mindful of, and know that it is so dangerous. As you said, it's not just something that would be a pastime or they may do a little bit of, but it can become an addiction.
Yeah, well, it is, and people need to understand, like, this isn't, commercialized gambling today, but especially online gambling, is a known, dangerous, and addictive product. So the American Psychiatric Association puts out what's called the DSM-5 every 10 years, and it's known as the mental health Bible. Okay, hospitals use it, insurance companies use it, as like for mental health diagnosis. They label gambling addiction at the same level they label opioids, cocaine, and heroin. So this is a known dangerous and addictive product. That's why we call it gambling fentanyl. And so what's different about this than any other dangerous and addictive product is the state governments, and hopefully not here in Alabama, but they're encouraging people to do this. Like, this is happening with the blessing of state government. It was state attorney generals who sued the opioid makers for addicting an entire generation of young people to opioids. And we're still suffering from that. Here, there's no state attorney general that has ever brought consumer protection litigation against a commercialized gambling operator because the state is a partner to it. So all these gambling proponents and gambling lobbyists who try to kind of wrap this up as if it's something, good for people, that we're going to quote unquote regulate it. Quote unquote regulating gambling, they're not regulating it to protect you or your kids or your family or your coworkers or your community. There's regulate, and I quote that in quotes, is they're regulating it to make sure that the state's getting its fair cut. They're not regulating it, is this a safe product for you to be using? And that's what makes this totally different, because the more the business model for all these forms of gambling, whether it's state lotteries, regional casinos, and especially online gambling, it's based on addicted gamblers. They don't have the casual gambler, those who say, I just do this casual, like, you're irrelevant to their business model. The goal is to turn you into an addicted gambler. And so to put a real number on it, 86% of online gambling profits come from 5% of the gamblers.
Wow.
So
another aspect that I think sometimes with gambling may seem more innocuous, and I think, when you talk about maybe with friends or maybe in the public, the idea of a lottery is generally more accepted, the concept of that. And we hear in discussions that, no, I would absolutely be opposed to a comprehensive gambling bill that would include casinos and sports betting and a lottery. But if it was just a bill that dealt with a clean lottery, then I would have to support that and give, the public, my constituents, the opportunity to vote. If you would, talk about the examples that are out there that you shared this morning from neighboring states, from other states, of how our lotteries really marketed. It's not just I'm going to go in and buy one little scratch-off ticket in the gas station and drop it in to see if I win, right, Les? So.
Well, I don't mean to smile when you're describing that narrative, but what made me smile is this notion that the gambling lobbyists and gambling proponents here are using the frame of clean lottery. Like, I don't even know what that means. Like, it's just, they will wrap this up to make it look like, whatever they can do to get it passed, to get, enough votes to get the thing through the legislature. But a clean lottery, like, that's the ultimate, this whole thing at its root is a con game, right? The more you participate in this, you're going to end up losing, whether it's a lottery, casinos, or online gambling. But you just look, we hear a lot about Georgia, right? Georgia's lottery and some of the surrounding states. What I showed today was the Georgia lottery, like, the understanding of most people in Alabama here think like the lottery is like Mega Millions or Powerball. Like, those games are those gambling games make up a very small percentage of state lottery profits. The bulk of state lottery profits come from high price point games like scratch tickets, rapid play, immediate graphic gratification type games. So like a state like Georgia sells $50 scratch off tickets in low income communities across the state, where people make $7.25 an hour. You got to work a full day's wage at a minimum wage job there in Georgia before you can lose it on a $50 scratch-off ticket in 5 seconds, which is pushed by your own state government. And it's marketed as, hey, this is your fastest way to $1 million. So the other big piece of this is the state lotteries like Georgia, they're trying to appeal to a whole new young generation now of young people. So I urge all of your listeners, because we hear so much about the Georgia lottery, people need to understand what a real lottery looks like in 2024, is go onto the Georgia lottery website and look at the online gambling games that they offer the state, that they're pushing through the internet to get people to play. Several of them have they're called like ladybugs, little ladybug. It's like cats and dogs, pirate ships, it's cartoon-like figures. Like, who do you think these gambling games are appealing to? They're appealing to young people. Like, if this was a tobacco company doing it, the state attorney general of Georgia and other states, they'd be suing them. But this is a government program, so these are highly addictive. As I said, this is a known dangerous addictive product. Online gambling is the most dangerous form of gambling of all. It's gambling fentanyl. And here you have state governments like Georgia and others pushing, like, online gambling to lure young people in to start, and they're free to play games to start. So like it's like try it for free. So they're trying to get you the habit of playing. You don't have to play for money. Like you kind of play, you win for credits, and then they try to transition you over to the playing for real with real money. And so like that's what this business is about. And so whether it's $50 scratch tickets in Georgia, Texas sells a $100 scratch off ticket. It's these extreme forms of gambling where lotteries and other gambling interests make their money. The casual gambler who plays once or twice a year, you are irrelevant to their business model. And for all your listeners who never gamble, like who do you think pays when citizens are losing $1 trillion of personal wealth over the next 6 years?
We still pay.
Like you pay even if you don't play. All of these states that have gone down, that become big predatory gambling states, the citizens there are paying higher taxes and receiving less services because of predatory gambling. This is the ultimate budget gimmick. And so, the idea that's going to pay for education, all this stuff, it's a big con game. There's no increase in education funding. They just take the money coming in and they allocate it to something else. And in the long term, as a revenue source, like the only way you keep, when your economy grows here in Alabama, all your other revenue sources grow. Okay, revenue sources grow. In this instance, the only way gambling revenue grows is you have to add new extreme forms of gambling on top of it. Okay, and so it's the ultimate budget gimmick.
So I hear you on all that, Les, but the counter argument for some will be, I want to play the lottery. I want to be able to, gamble at a casino. I want to be able to sports bet. Why should I be prevented from being able to do those things?
Yeah, you're not. You can already place a bet with each other when it comes to. You and I can always place a friendly bet with each other. What this fight is about is you can gamble all you want. We do keep gambling. Allow small unlicensed games. Keep them private and local. What we're talking about here is the ultimate government program. This is the ultimate big government program. Okay, it's the public voice of government in state after state. We are actively encouraging people to lose these games. So this idea that if this was really about free, personal choice, like let people do this, let people gamble. People already do this. What we're not allowed to do is you and I can't run our own casino. We can't run our own lottery. Like there's no free market aspect to this. This is the ultimate form of crony capitalism, and so this is a business, as we said earlier, that is designed to get people to lose money over the long term. State government is actively having an adversarial relationship with citizens. So what you do privately is your business, but government should not be trying to have it take down its citizens, with $100 scratch off tickets, because it's failed. The legalization of commercialized gambling has been an epic policy failure. And then the last thing I'll just say on this point is, this is not a debate on whether or not like a Las Vegas should exist. Maybe have a Las Vegas in the desert. There's a reason why they put it in the desert in the first place. You had to fly there. Maybe you went there once every couple of years. Now what they're proposing here in Alabama is to bring Las Vegas on Main Street, put it on downtown in your local community. And more specifically, when it comes to online gambling, is to open up a Las Vegas casino right in your kid's bedroom, in your grandkid's bedroom, in his dorm room, or in your office here in Alpha. Like that's what this fight's about. And most of us that's why there's no grass. No one's pounding the table saying, I want a Las Vegas casino in my living room so I can sit in my pajamas and lose my rent payment or a mortgage payment. This is about these big powerful companies in partnership with a handful of public officials trying to ram this through for the benefit, for their own benefit, not to benefit the people of Alabama.
So, Les, if we are to have legalized, statewide gambling, it would have to pass the legislature, and then if it passed the legislature, it'd go before the people of Alabama for a vote on a constitutional amendment. We hear it said sometimes, well, I just want to have the right to vote, or my constituents want to be able to vote on this issue. What do you say in response to that as we look at that issue, as far as, what an elected official, what a legislator should think through, what they maybe should consider when they think about that argument?
Yeah. So I think any legislator, if you're a serious legislator, like I can't imagine anyone really giving, in their heart, I think that's the right approach here, because, the idea that you're going to if this goes to the ballot, I always say to state legislators, imagine if you had a primary or a general election and you were outspent 3-1 in terms of your campaign spending. Like you'd have a very hard time winning re-election, no matter your merit. But now imagine going on the ballot and being outspent 1,000-1 are 5,000 to 1, meaning, for every dollar you spend on advertising, your opponent's spending $5,000, per ad. So if you put this on the ballot, the gambling interests here are going to spend almost probably $10-20 million to ram this through. There's no meaningful debate that's going to occur. You're not going to have an informed public making a decision on this. So I think any legislator, every legislator, if you don't spend 1,000 to 1, that legislator's losing. So the idea that you're going to allow this to go on the ballot and say, oh, look, the people spoke, it's really disingenuous. And I think the legislators in Alabama, most of them here are better than that. And so I think do your homework on this. There's a reason why, other states are, financially this has failed so much in other states. And there's a reason why these guys have to spend millions of dollars to ram this through the legislature, because it's not something your constituents want. It's been a failed public policy that costs all of us, whether you gamble or not.
So as we approach the start of our legislative session in Alabama on February the 6th, what would you say to those listening that are opposed to gambling in Alabama? What can they do today?
Okay, so the most important thing you can do as a citizen of Alabama to stop predatory gambling here, and one is you need to make it a priority in your life to educate people about, come to our website at stoppredatorygambling.org, get educated, but you need to educate your family members, your coworkers, members of your community. If you belong to a church, educate your peers. But most importantly, you need to educate your state senator and your state legislator, your state representative, and tell them this is not in the best interest of Alabama. You need to explain to them the facts on this, because the industry wants this to be a very superficial debate. This is an issue where the more you dig into it, you're like, this doesn't make any sense. When you put a state in charge of gambling, it's the equivalent of putting Dracula in charge of the blood bank. So just think of that analogy, right? No one would want Dracula in charge of the blood bank, right? So the idea that somehow the state is going to protect the public interest if you allow all these forms of predatory gambling here, it's going to affect all of us, whether you gamble or not. So talk to your legislators, educate them, and make this a priority in your life, because if you don't gamble, or if you have loved ones, or your kids especially, this is going to affect you. It's coming into your home, and so we need to stand up and fight this. It's America's most neglected major problem, and you have the power to do something about it.
Great advice. And as we wrap up, I'd like for you to touch on some of the resources that the listeners can find with Stop Predatory Gambling. Talk a little bit about that. We'll include the website that you mentioned in our show notes, but would love to share what they can find and learn how they can learn more.
Sure. So if you come to our website, we have a section under resources that's called frequently asked questions. So you can get there, kind of help you kind of share some of the things we talked about here with some more detail. As you scroll down further on the homepage, we did a really good report on state lotteries and how they've been a failure in this country, and we have a lot of good resources there, interviews. There's a great national documentary that was released in 2016 called Out of Luck, which is the first national documentary into state lotteries. That was a really, really well done film. You can watch that. There's a lot of ways to get educated and arm yourself with the facts, and to make a difference on this. So if you care about protecting your kids and your community, and really want to make a difference in society, this is your issue. This is the public voice of American government today, regardless of what your political stripes are. You want to make a difference and improve society, it runs through taking government out of the predatory gambling business.
Thank you, and well said. And Les, I just want to say I appreciate your passion on this issue that has been obvious as we've listened to you today, and just the wealth of information, your history on this issue, just so broad and deep. And so it's been a great help, I know, to everyone that was here for the meeting this morning, but also that we're getting to touch a lot more listeners. So again, I want to thank you, Les Bernal, with Stop Predatory Gambling, and thank you, listeners, for being with us for this week's edition of Alabama AgCast.